a kidney transplant, as well as asthma and gut issues, multiple things going on, as do many people with chronic illness. So I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves and we will get started. Mandy, let's start with you. What is your illness? What do you do?
I am a type 1 diabetic, and I have been a type 1 diabetic for about 8 or 9 years now. And I'm also a real estate broker associate and own my own staging company.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you were a type 1 diabetic. Why?
So they don't really understand 100% how it happened, but when I was pregnant, I had gestational diabetes, which is very, very common. And then afterwards, it never went away. And so they misdiagnosed me as a type 2 diabetic for the longest time, had me on the wrong medication. And then finally, I found a good endocrinologist who tested my beta cells and found out that I was, in fact, type 1.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sarah, what about you?
My chronic illness is hematoxylin purpuranephritis, which caused my kidney failure. I had a kidney transplant 2 years ago, and I work as an LPN, but my business is a quilting business.
Awesome. And Janelle?
Well, I am a personal trainer, nutritionist, prep coach, contest prep for bodybuilding shows. I have, like, similar to you, not kidney, but severe gut issues, severe allergies, Hashimoto's, polycystic ovaries, which with Hashimoto's, I've been through hell and back with doctors, and it goes up, it goes down, trying to balance the thyroid out, multiple endocrinologists. And what really helped me was a DO, pretty much, a doctor of osteopath, because they look at the whole picture instead of one thing. And I just recently have had a little bit of rough patch for 4 months with my illness and coming back healing. So yeah, sometimes just finding the right doctor, because you need somebody who's open-minded. Yeah. So
That's definitely.
sorry if my bird goes off because he's in the room.
I love it. What kind of bird?
He's a parrot.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool.
I try to get him in a different room, but
You do what you can. So
Yeah.
what I'm curious about, because for the most part with most of us, although Sarah, I don't know when yours started, but it sounds like we all had a lot of our illness stuff happen maybe a little later or different points in our
Yes.
life. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, like, what was your life before illness and what's your life after illness?
This is a really interesting question.
Right? It changes.
Yeah.
It's a big difference. Most of the time,
Absolutely.
right?
So for me, my 20s, 30s were great. My actually late 20s to early 30s is when stuff started to happen. But you know how doctors are, they test you and stuff wasn't coming up in a blood test, but I was having symptoms, clear symptoms of Hashimoto's. And before that, I was energetic. I mean, I didn't have any problems with food allergies. I could, wake up feeling great. Life was good. And then when autoimmune hits you, it's like you have your good days and you have your bad days. And I call it the invincible disease because, when people think you have a disease, they think, oh, you don't look like you have a disease, but inside you're dying, you're suffering, and people can't understand that. That's how I feel about it. So for me, there's good days and bad days. Some days you wake up and oh, this is going to be a rough day because I'm not feeling good today. Or the next day you're like, wow, I'm actually feeling good. But how long will this last?
Right.
Yeah.
That's very true. No, totally. I get that. I think everybody with chronic illness can relate to that. Once something comes on, you're like, let's roll the dice. What's today going to be?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like the lotto. Like, am I going to win today or am I not going to win today? It's crazy.
Sarah, what about you?
My illness actually started when I was 13. So, like, prior to that, obviously I was a little kid, and I don't know. There's definitely good days and bad days, and good weeks and bad weeks. But I would say overall my life was a lot different before I was ill. I was in sports, I was doing stuff, and now that stuff is really hard for me to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. And do you mind me asking, how old are you now?
I'm 21.
Okay, so it's been in the last 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
And you went on dialysis too, and we'll get into that, all of that. But how long were you on dialysis?
I actually didn't have to do
Oh,
dialysis.
I thought you
My,
did. Okay.
no, my transplant was preemptive,
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
so yeah, I didn't have to do it.
That's so cool. Good for you.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah, no, that's the ideal situation. So that's so cool.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then Mandy.
Yes. So since I developed this much later in my life, I was 27, I guess, and I'm 35 now. It's pretty much every day of my life. I'm always like thinking back of, God, it used to be so much different. Like, and just like she was saying with an autoimmune disease, like people visually can't see that you're sick, but some days I can't get out of bed. Like I have zero energy, or my blood sugar is just so out of whack because even my insulin isn't working, that I literally just feel like I'm going to die. It's a constant balance every day, and it's exhausting. Like exhausting on top of everything else you have to deal with, like with a work, and I have a child. And so yeah, whenever I reflect back to being prior to 27, like life was pretty much a cakewalk compared to what it is now.
So agree with that.
Yeah.
Mhm. For
Yeah.
So
real.
agree. Yes. You were strong, you're energetic, you could take on the
Do
world,
anything.
do
Yeah,
anything. And now it's like, ugh, how am I gonna get through my day today? Yeah.
exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, because there's also like, it even comes down to like things like, especially like when you have gut issues, or, Sarah, you didn't have to do dialysis, but you were pre-dialysis to have a transplant. So you had to adjust your
Yeah,
diet. So we've all had to adjust our diets.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Illness.
definitely.
And that's
Yes.
actually an interesting thing, because that's such a daily thing that like chronic illness makes you really appreciative of the smallest things you would never think of, like food, like
Mhm.
foods you can eat, or, and so that's kind of an interesting thing to get into, because we all, big things change, but it's the little things that tally up that sometimes really affect things. Like Mandy, you posted online the other day about your experience at Panera.
Mhm.
Do you want to
Yeah.
share that?
Yeah, I definitely can. So I took my daughter to Panera, and since I'm type 1 diabetic, my pancreas doesn't make any insulin at all. So I have to inject insulin anytime I eat anything that has like over 2 carbs in it, which is pretty much everything.
Everything.
So I was having some like squash soup, and then I could feel my sugar start getting high. So I was like, okay, I need to take insulin. Like now I'm at the point where I've been doing this so long, I'm not going to go excuse myself to wait in the line in the bathroom to do it. Like I'm sitting at my table, I'm just going to inject it into my stomach. So there was a table of 3 people, and they weren't like teenagers, they were adults. And I overhear them say, look at her, she's doing heroin at the table with her child.
Oh my
Oh my
God.
God.
That's crazy.
And I was like, first of all, who injects heroin into their stomach? Okay.
And who does it in
Second of
public
all,
in an Panera Bread?
right, exactly. And I was just like, people are so uneducated about so many diseases that affect
Yeah.
so many people. And it's just,
Yeah.
like I wasn't embarrassed or anything, because I realized they're just idiots. But yeah, there's always something like people judging, or if I have to, like on the plane before, I've had to check my blood sugar, and the person next to me was like, do you need to do that here? Like, yeah, would you rather me go into a coma? Like,
Jeez.
Wow.
you
I
know,
can't believe how
they're-
ignorant people are. That's crazy.
yes, and insensitive completely.
Right.
Yeah.
No compassion.
No, none.
Yeah.
Nothing. And that's one of those moments where it's like, because you have to do the insulin, it's a little visible, but it's not visible in the way like you don't look sick. So they assume
Right.
you were doing heroin. It's
Right.
Also, you don't look like a heroin
Yeah.
addict. So I don't know why they would assume heroin, but that just shows how little people actually know. They assume needle means heroin.
Right, exactly.
No
Sad.
other in between. And that's just crazy to me. And yeah, wow. And then Janelle, like with bodybuilding and everything, how has that affected?
I actually had to retire from this year from competition. I did a whole hour video of me competing and how it kicks my autoimmune disease off and my body doesn't bounce back anymore like it was in my 20s, and I'm 42 now. So the idea of competing, I just can't do anymore, because coming off of, you know, contest prep, and you're depleting your body and you're getting to an ultra low body fat, my body does not like that. It just rejects it. So this is the most sick I've ever gotten in 4 months post show. So that was like actually an eye opener to really sit and be like, we can't do this anymore. We have to be healthy all the time, and maybe just staying healthy and training in the gym and forget about competing, because it's not worth it in the end. Because I was in the hospital like 3 times, like, and my thyroid, I had heart palpitations, thyroid was all off, severe allergies. My immune system just pretty much was like shutting down, pretty much. It was just, that's what happens when you push yourself really far, adrenals, and the allergies came up, and then I had prednisone they gave me, and then that affected my thyroid, and then the antibiotics I was on, my whole body was rejecting everything, and bad side effects. So they couldn't get a lot of things under control. And that scared me. And it was an eye opener, a reflection of, you know what, my career in bodybuilding is pretty much over, competing anyway. So I'll just be coaching behind the scenes. And it was, when you get a scare and you're the sickest, and maybe Sarah, you could probably relate to this with the kidney. You start to really think about life. Like, I don't want to be this sick ever again. This is scary. I took my body too far. I'm grateful I'm healing, but we can't go back. This just can't do this anymore. Done. And even I scared my husband, my family around me, and they're like, please don't compete anymore. Please don't do this anymore. And I'm like, I don't want to. I'm afraid to. It's sometimes you get a scare, like, this, let me just be healthy and enjoy the gym and be, I'll always be a bodybuilder, but in terms of competing, my body just can't take it anymore. Just can't do it.
Well, that makes
And that
sense.
was a scare. That was definitely a scare. That was probably the sickest I ever been, because I went through this like 10 years ago with my thyroid going imbalanced and hyperactive. But on top of it was the allergies, plus my gut was compromised. It was causing severe anxiety and panic attacks, and the whole thing just shutting down. I've never been that sick in my life. I mean, it's crazy. So it's definitely scary. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And then, Sarah, what about you? Pre-transplant, post-transplant, or any other point?
Yeah.
I have like one experience that pops to mind just about having an invisible illness before my transplant. So before my transplant, they said that the only way to save my kidneys was to do 6 months of chemotherapy, which was pretty brutal. And I had to do monthly pregnancy tests, even though I had never even been sexually active at that point. I was 17. And anyways, one time I go into the lab to do this pregnancy test, and this teenage girl is sitting there with her mom, and the teenager leans over towards her mom and says, "Why does that girl have to have a pregnancy test?" And the mom goes right back and says, "Well, honey, some people aren't good kids like you. Some people make bad decisions." And I was like,
that is so like judgmental and like assuming.
Yeah. So that was pretty brutal. I know my phlebotomist like chewed her ass out. Like, especially because I was like,
at least somebody
like.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely pre-transplant though. I had a lot more restrictions on my life. I had to be really careful with my diet. I had to be really careful with not wearing myself out because my GFR got really low. Like, my overall kidney function got really, really low. And I really didn't want to do dialysis, like to the point where I was telling my parents that I just straight up wasn't going to do it.
Wow.
And so they ended up doing a preemptive transplant with a living donor, which was really cool.
That's awesome.
And post-transplant, my life has been easier in some ways because I don't have the diet restrictions. It's harder in a lot of ways because I get really worn out really quickly. And just I don't have the energy that I used to, and you know, I get sick a lot. Like, I actually just got out of the hospital because I had hydronephrosis, which is where there's like a fluid buildup around your kidney, which made it really painful. But yeah, I feel like, especially compared to a lot of people my age, like, people don't really expect a 21-year-old to have all these health problems. So it makes it a little tricky.
Right. And you actually said you went into sepsis with this last one, right? This last
I've
one?
had sepsis 4 times with this kidney.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
So since this is about, female entrepreneurs and their chronic illness, so we've talked about a little bit about lifestyle. What made you choose the business you're in? So for some of us, it was, you might have been in this business before you got ill. Some of us, it was after. I'm kind of curious, what made your choice? Did your illness inform your choice at all? Has it changed your business? How has that affected you guys? Janelle, you want to start?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always been a trainer since I was in my 20s. I'm a different coach and trainer than I am in my 40s.
Okay.
My true passion is to help others, and I always love nutrition and wellness. What's changed about my business, because it was always just about training and nutrition, now it's health first, training, nutrition, and the whole, because of what's happened to me, I take extra care of my clients to make sure physically, mentally they're okay. Making sure they're getting blood work and testing their hormones, and they're getting comprehensive panels and making sure they're okay. And because people they don't take it seriously. I work with people who don't have chronic illness, but I've also have gravitated now more people who have autoimmune disease, because I have a lot of knowledge about it, because I did a lot of research on it since I was going through it. So I get people with lupus or rheumatoid arthritis or a lot of Hashimoto's clients, or gut issues, allergies, because they want to be with somebody who can relate. And I've told them my personal stories, and they feel very comfortable working with me because of that, where somebody who can understand, like Sarah's talking about her experience, and with the person assuming, so they sometimes work with coaches that don't understand what they're going through. They're having a bad day, or having, no energy today. Should I work out? Should I not work out? And then they'll ask me questions, and I'll say, well, this is what I do. And whereas they have a coach that doesn't understand it, they'll be like, oh, you just need rest, blah, blah, blah. Just not taking it so serious. So I've definitely changed my business, more wellness and health, focusing on health mentally and physically. Definitely.
That makes sense. Or I'm sure that on the other hand of it too, there's some people that'll have a coach that they don't understand it, and they're like, oh, just push through it.
Yeah, that too.
Which is
Yeah.
way more detrimental.
But you can't tell somebody who's lupus or Hashimoto's, who's like their joints and their muscles are killing them, and it's like pushing through would not be the right answer.
Right.
Yeah, they're inflamed. They need to rest. They
Right.
need to take, and heal.
No, that makes sense. And then Sarah, with your quilting business and all of that, how'd that come about?
Basically, I lost my job because I had been sick too many days. And that was pretty brutal because, I love what I do. I love working in the medical field. I love taking care of other people. And quilting is something that I've always kind of had a real passion for. And I realized that I could kind of do something that I love and make other people happy. And a big part of what I do is I make quilts for patients on dialysis. And so, yeah, that makes me really happy because, one, I get to do something that I love, and two, I get to give back to a community who's like been through the same stuff that I have.
Yes.
So it's really rewarding.
That's how I feel too about my clients, because it's rewarding to give back to others who went through similar stuff as you. So, and you're enjoying what you're doing, so it doesn't even feel like work.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a big thing of it. And for people who don't know, the reason quilts for dialysis patients is so awesome is because when you're on dialysis, you're freezing your ass off because they're taking blood. They keep the rooms really cold, and you go in there with like as many layers as, it's just so cold. You're uncomfortable. And so any little thing that gives you comfort, like a quilt, especially that it's handmade and everything else, is such an amazing gift to make something that's really difficult a little bit more bearable from both sides, from the side of like you're warmer, but also that it's, this beautiful thing that's handmade from somebody for people in that same situation. So I think that's awesome.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And Mandy.
Yes. So I've been in real estate since I started working. So definitely prior to being diagnosed. Things are very different now just because, real estate, it's not a 9 to 5 job. So I'm sometimes having to meet with clients at 7 in the morning to staying up until past midnight, working on proposals and things like that. And when you have an autoimmune disease, it's very taxing on you. You already don't have enough energy to begin with. And now I have to stay up, and work a 14, 15-hour day. And it's near impossible sometimes. So there will be days where I have like 3 days in a row like that, where I'm killing myself. And then the next 3 days, I literally can't get out of bed. So it's hard to find any kind of balance when it comes to that type of work and maintaining your health at the same time. So that's why I do take those days. And I'm like, I'm not getting out of bed. Like, I need to, let my body heal itself before I can even try to do anything. So it does set me up for a disadvantage, though, financially, compared to someone who has a normal functioning immune system. So it's been a challenge for sure.
That makes sense. So here's the next question for all of that then. So given even all these difficulties, is there anything you would change about being in business for yourself versus not, and this is for everybody, and having chronic illness?
One thing I did, go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, okay. As far as being in business for myself, the best thing about that is that I can take those days off when I need it versus, having a 9 to 5 job where I have to be there for somebody else. If I'm not feeling well, just like she said, I'm going to end up losing my job because of how many days I have to miss. So in that aspect, working for myself and being able to, build my own schedule is just best for me for sure.
I could definitely agree with that because I like the flexibility of having your own business. You can change your hours around. I mean, I used to be like you, Amanda, where it was like up at 4 a.m., training clients. Then even though you have a split shift, then I'm training myself. Then I'm working till from 4 to 9 at night, and then I have to do it all over again. And I can't do it anymore. So I had to actually lose a couple of clients because I just couldn't do the schedule anymore. My brain couldn't function because you have to work. By the 9 o'clock client, I'm like, I know a million exercises. I cannot think right now. And it's like I was always tired all the time and run down. And I said, I did the schedule for like 20 years, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. So like 2 years ago, I changed my schedule around. The earliest I start is 8, and the latest I take a client is like 7, and like that is it. And it's just I get a lot more sleep now, and because sleep is huge for me. Otherwise I'm like hurting in the morning, and I need I don't do a lot of weekends because it's the whole, we need to take the day off. I can't function and I can't get through my day. So I like the flexibility of making my own hours, and I've learned to say no a little bit more for people who want certain times, and I'm like, I can't do it anymore. I just can't. Whereas when I was younger, I used to be like, oh yeah, I'll take anybody anytime, And then it was like, I can't do this. I can't keep running around and running on empty. So yeah, I could totally relate to that. So that's what I like about having the hours that I can make myself.
Yeah.
Or if you have to take a day off, you do. You don't feel good.
Yeah. And then Sarah, what about you?
I definitely agree that making your own hours is super nice. The part where I've struggled is if I don't feel good, I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
And so meeting deadlines is sometimes a little bit hard for me because I have these long-term projects that I have to complete. So I think like one way I could improve my business is like having somebody else manage my schedule a little bit, like where I still have the flexibility, but it's not like every single day I get to take off.
Right.
Because I'm bad about doing that.
That makes sense. And do you think you would ever go back into medical, or are you happier and
Oh
maybe
yeah, no.
you would?
I work in the medical field right now.
Oh, you still do?
Yeah, part-time.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, the part-time is really nice because I can go home and rest. So like I only work in the mornings right now, which means that in the afternoons I can come home, I can rest, I can quilt a little bit, I can make
Nice.
dinner for my family, quilt some more, and really it keeps me on a better schedule, like
Yeah.
where I'm a lot more consistent.
And I think that's great because you've found it sounds like you found a good like halfway point between like,
Yeah.
because you loved that career, but because of your illness, it's kind of made you start your own business too. So you get to have both worlds and found what works for you. And like for me, it's funny because Janelle, I'm similar, and then at the same time, the opposite to you is like I used to say yes to all my clients. I'll train every
Mm-hmm.
day long, 6 days a week, and then I'm like, I can't do this anymore. But what I needed more than anything was more days off. And so what I do instead is I work 2 really long days. I work
Right.
Monday and Wednesday, 14-hour days, 12 to 14.
Yes.
And then I don't teach the other days, because what it is if I work 3 hours or 14, I'm equally exhausted the next day. My body
Yeah.
just,
No, yeah, can't do it.
and I learned that, and I'm like, okay, well, if that's the case, then I might as well just be really exhausted 2 days instead of trying to draw it out. And then
Right,
that's easier for my body, because either way, the days in between, I need to be able to rest and recover and everything else. And so that's
absolutely.
a big change for me. And then those other days I can work on the other projects I have going on. But
Mhm.
like that's the biggest change for me, is it's like I can work 3 hours or I can work 13 hours. I'm still tired.
Yeah.
It's still exhausting. It's not like, oh, I can just pop in for an hour or two and I'm fine. That doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
No.
And those are
Yeah.
those little
Very
things
true.
that change that you're like, oh, and it's, sometimes I joke, I'm like, oh, I'm getting older. I'm like, no, you have a kidney transplant and you have 50 other things going on. And
Right.
then getting sleep, being able to get 8 hours a night is really important now. I used to
Yeah.
be, I'm so proud I can only get 4 or 5. No. If I don't
Oh
get
God, I used to be able to function on 4 or 5 hours a night, and I was like, yeah, this is great. And now I'm like, no, we cannot function on
No,
more.
it's
I'm staring at the
painful.
wall, and like,
Yeah.
my brain is not working.
yeah, that's totally true. The next thing I'd like to briefly touch base, and then we're gonna kind of end this thing and wrap this part up. But so we are starting to touch on it. So being a woman, being a business owner, and having chronic illness, what boundaries, we started touching on it with like saying no to clients, but what boundaries have you had to set? Let's start with just the business side first. What boundaries have you had to set in your business life to take care of you in the other parts of your life?
I can answer that.
Yeah.
Basically I can only accept so many orders, or else I completely lose my mind and flip out. But I find that limiting my orders, limiting the the complexity of the orders
Mhm.
has been really helpful, and setting realistic expectations for myself where I can't just say, oh, I'm just gonna power through and I'm just gonna do it. Like I need to have time scheduled off
Yeah,
so that I can do that appropriately.
that's great. That makes perfect sense. And then Janelle, what about you? So you said the
I would
client.
say similar to Sarah, because there's like there's some days I do long, and then other days shorter, because if I have to work on somebody's plans or
Well, yeah,
a training nutrition plan, I need my brain to function. There's only so much that I can do in a day, and I need to set aside time where I'm not taking clients, or I need a few hours off so I can work on that, or train myself, or get the sleep that I need to sleep. So there is some boundaries. Certain times of the day I don't take clients, because I know I need that regrouping or that recovery or that rest. Like I'm talking mentally, because sometimes
right.
I'll have brain fog, or I can't, because using my business, using your brain all the time. So it's almost like my brain can only take so much now. Whereas I used to be able to, before I got this illness, I could go all day. I'm very sharp. I could do this and that. Now, there's only so much hours of the day where I could really use my brain, and I need to you know, take a chill and recover and be like, I can't overwork myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I need time set aside where I can work on, you know, fitness programs, sitting and being able to use my brain in its full capacity.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Perfect sense. Yeah. And Mandy, what about you?
Pretty much the same thing. I actually started seeing she handles like business life coaching, but she's also a therapist. And so I started seeing her a couple of years ago. And the last year really helped me with this because I was struggling so much with how do I maintain a balance when I don't feel well, and like how do I still make sure I'm attending to my clients' needs while I myself can't even take care of myself.
Right.
And she's basically taught me that you just can't bite off more than you can chew. You have to be realistic about, you know, the amount of business that you're doing when you don't feel well. You have to have boundaries with these clients. And basically my thing is I won't answer any phone calls after 7 p.m. now, unless it's like an absolute emergency. And then I've really learned that if I have a specific client who is not understanding and is pushing me further than a normal person should be pushing me, and just not having realistic expectations, like I can let those people go and I'll be fine because my health is going to benefit in the end instead of killing myself with these people for a paycheck.
Right.
So, you know, there's a lot of adjustments that have had to be made for sure.
You touched on something that I think is like the biggest thing, and Janelle, you had mentioned it too, and I think we're all kind of touching on the same thing of like learning to say no is way tougher than you ever think it is when it comes to business. And
Yeah.
People,
So true.
business owners have that problem anyway, but for us, it's more like potentially life and death at certain points in the sense of like, if we don't say no in really specific times, that's putting our health at risk and the stakes are even higher. And learning to navigate that because you also don't want to be the sick person in a sense too, right? So it's like you don't want to be labeled a certain way necessarily if that's something you care about, or you don't want to be seen a certain way when you're just really trying to find that balance and be competitive in your business, be able to make the money you need to financially make. Those are all things you have to navigate even more than any other business owner. And I think we all kind of agree on that. This is a great place for us to wrap up. And when we come back, I want to touch into the other areas of, you know, being a woman with chronic illness, with a business, the other parts of our life that get affected from all of these things. Thank you all for starting this conversation with me. I'm going to take a pause right now and we will be back. The next episode is going to be part 2 of this.